entertainmentbuddha.com.
Hey now, everybody, welcome back to a brand new and super duper special episode of Thrones Time. And why is it so freaking super duper? Well, my friends, it's because the show has finally returned to the airwaves, or should we say the stream waves, the cable waves. Who gives a shit? Game of Thrones Season 8 is here. We got the first episode. It was titled Winterfell. So it's Matt, it's Nick, it's Keith. That's right, the triumvirate is back. We are here to break down new episodes of Game of Thrones, which is something we've been pining to do for almost 2 years now, my friends. So it's good to be back. I know we've been kind of not really half-assing our podcast, but we haven't been doing regular Thrones stuff for the past 2 years. You know, we dip in over this last year to talk about some interesting news, trailers, images. But the show's here now, so it's time to do some work. It's time to speculate on what we saw in this first episode and potentially predict what's going to happen in the next. So first and foremost, gentlemen, I guess I'll start with Keith. What was your general overall feel of this first episode? How did you take it in? What did you think? Did it do its job? Were you pleased?
I thought it was kind of a mixed bag in the sense that, like, if it were literally any other season of the show, I thought it was a pretty stellar opening episode. We caught up with all of the characters. We got to see what they've been up to. Sort of time leaps make a little bit more sense when we're breaking the season. So, like, opening on Jon and Danny arriving in Winterfell made sense. It was really nice to see everybody kind of, getting back to things. It's been 20 freaking months since we last saw these characters do something new.
It was like seeing an extended family on an old VHS tape or something. I mean, it had been a while, so it was great to see him. So
yeah.
Overall, you dug it, but it sounded like it didn't quite punch you in the face.
There's a big but. Yeah. I don't know, man. I maybe it's just because I had literally wrapped up a rewatch of the whole series like 2 days before.
Okay, yeah. So you were locked and loaded going into this.
Oh God,
you were ready to explode.
I was on my shit, and I don't know. I was expecting more. And I don't know, and I think I was only expecting more just because, like, we're at this point where we are in single digits of episodes remaining, and I don't know. I just expected there to be something a little bit more.
It was short.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. In terms of pure content, we might have got 52 minutes.
Yeah.
Of actual story. I mean, I know they said it clocked in at 60, but you had some recaps. You had
it was like 10 minutes of recap.
Right, the new opening sequence that they wanted to show off, which is completely brand new. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know they've tweaked it every season, but this one it's way different. It's like navigating through Winterfell and this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, we only got 52 minutes of story, so I'm kind of with you, Keith. You have pretty much summed up what I think a lot of Game of Thrones fans felt with episode 1. But before we get into the general consensus, how about you, Nick? How did you take in episode 1? I mean, was it satisfying? Did you feel a little let down, or was it just right?
It was one of those things where I was so excited to have the show back, and then I watched it and I was like, this just feels right. And then I kind of thought about it a little more and kind of came to the same conclusion that Keith did, where it was good to see everybody again, but like Keith, I rewatched the whole series I guess I did my rewatch through like February and March, and then I still had a couple weeks left, and I was like, well, I guess I'll rewatch season 6 and 7, so
this guy is a real junkie, man.
So I'm literally coming from watching the wall get blown down to awkward brand memes now.
Yeah,
so,
that's a little bit of a letdown in terms of action, at least.
But I mean, I get why they did it. Like he said, there's only a handful of episodes left. So they want to get a lot of the reunion stuff, I guess, out of the way. But in terms of excitement and things happening, it felt a little dry. Other than, of course, the reveal, which
Right,
we'll
there
get
was-
into.
To me, there's two like fuck yeah moments, which we'll talk about during our top moment rundown. But just I'll jump in here with you guys, and honestly, I'm right on board with the both of you. Just like Nick, had a huge shit-eating grin on my face the entire time watching it. I was loving what I was seeing, but when it wrapped, I was just kind of like, that's fairly ho-hum. I mean, nothing major happened. Yes, we got the reveal, or John got the reveal, and we saw him on the dragon. But outside of that, it was just like, okay, let's get all the pieces into place, and then we'll start knocking things over in episode 2 and beyond. So it was, to me, it was I guess a true premiere episode. It definitely mirrored S8E1 like they said it would. I mean, there was a lot of mirror moments. I mean, the beginning in particular and the end. The end ended with Bran and Jaime locking eyes, just like it did in season 1, episode 1. And it also began with a queen and king coming to Winterfell. So that type of stuff was neat, but in terms of just knock me on my ass, there was a few moments, but it wasn't anything major. We didn't really get anything that we didn't already know, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, a lot of stuff we could see coming. It wasn't too hard if we were reading the tea leaves. So, guys, let's go ahead and get into the top moments. So this is something we do on EB. Every Monday I'm going to try to get my recap out. So I literally recap the events the way I interpret them. And then I'll list the top moments, kind of briefly explaining why they made it. And then these two guys are going to do their Reply All series where they literally, through email, just kind of have a casual conversation back and forth. It's a really cool feature that they do for Entertainment Buddha, so make sure to check those pieces out. But if you're following along, you can go to entertainmentbuddha.com and check out down the EB feature section. We will have the recap and top moments for this episode, plus we'll list it in the post shell for the podcast itself, because we are just on point motherfuckers. All right, guys, so clearly the first top moment, I mean, the spectacle of Danny, John, and her army and the dragons rolling in, I mean, that was pretty neat to see. In particular, I like that they showed us from Aria's point of view, especially when no one recognized her or rode right past her. I thought that was kind of cool how they showed she had the excitement of a little girl like she did in season 1, episode 1, but she is, we know, a much different person, reserved, and I think she almost was a little sad that John didn't recognize her right away, but also a little pleased, like, yeah, I am this much different. I am a completely different person than he would ever know, and I can just kind of melt into a crowd these days. So top moment number 1, the arrival of the king and queen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, it's mirroring the first episode, even so far as the kid climbing up into the tree. And I was kind of glad too that Aria was the first one we see as John and Danny come in. I wasn't expecting her there. I thought she'd be back at Winterfell with everyone else.
Oh yeah,
so,
me too. Yep.
Yeah, it was nice to see the awe on her face as the army comes through, and then of course as the dragons fly over and everyone starts running for their lives.
Yeah. Speaking of the dragon moment, Nick, that's actually my second one. And it's only because of how smug Danny looks when this happens. So again, to remind everyone, they're rolling in. You could tell the people of the north do not like this girl, right? I mean, they're very icy stares, and it's not just because it's fucking cold out.
Or Missandei and Grey Worm.
Oh yeah, I mean, they hate all of these people riding up into the north, and they can feel it, literally feel the death stares. So the two dragons come flying overhead and clearly scares the living piss out of everyone in the north, because no one has seen dragons in their lifetime. They've heard about them, but they still don't know it's real. And then they see them, and we've seen this in episodes past. Jon Snow, when he first saw the dragons down Dragonstone, very similar reaction. I mean, it literally knocked you off your feet. So as Danny's watching people probably shit themselves, she just gets this smile like, haha, yeah, fuck you, assholes. Like, you can think whatever you want. I've got those two things. And that's just kind of how I took her look. So I really loved the procession, and in particular, Danny's smug smile. You can tell she is not digging the North, and they're not digging her. Another reason why I suggest watching that behind the scenes video they're doing for these episodes, because Amelia actually talks about, like, hey, I was kind of jazzed, I'm going to meet the family, right? And then they're all just assholes to me. and that's pretty much, that started right with the procession.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Keith.
Oh, I just, one of the things that I, sort of noticed watching those opening moments of the episode was just like, oh, that shot was from the trailer. That shot was from the trailer. That shot was from the trailer. And I love the fact that the vast majority of the trailers that we spent, a not small amount of time dissecting were just like, yeah, this is the opening moments of episode 1.
No, that's a great point, Keith. I believe that the footage we've seen doesn't extend probably past the beginning of episode 3.
Yeah.
In the trailers, at least. I think you're dead on. I mean, majority was in this first episode. I think we'll get a few more cuts from the second and maybe a brief from the third, but yeah, you're dead on. Yet we sat here and we were like, oh, what could this mean? When could it be taking place? Well, yeah, idiots. It all takes place during like the first 30 minutes of episode 1. So that is
yeah, it was great.
Point.
It was great. I loved it.
And in another scene, the next top moment is another one. I think it was in the HBO. This is coming the HBO sizzle reel, and that is the meeting between Sansa and Danny. And I put in here, like, these two have perfected being bitches to each other without being outright bitches to each other. I mean, they are masters of shade throwing, and it starts right when Sansa first meets Danny. Danny, like, kind of throws a little dig, like, oh, the North and you are as beautiful as your brother said. I mean, how can you say the North is beautiful, honestly? I mean, it's a shithole. I mean, it looks like Ohio, for Christ's sake. So that was a dig. And then, Sansa literally doesn't even reply to her.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't even fucking reply. And then it just really continues throughout the episode, and I think we're going to get more of it in episode 2. So I like the dynamic between these two. I mean, do you guys think there's any room for these two to ever get on the same page?
I think there is. And John kind of confronts Sansa about it a little bit later in the episode. Sansa's worried about who's going to be the leader, and John's like, look, I'm just trying to survive here. Like, we're not going to do it without her, so this is what had to be done, kind of thing. So.
She also calls him out. She's like, "Are you sure your little head wasn't thinking on that decision, or were you thinking about the?"
Yeah,
North?
I mean, he was staring. He was staring at her good heart. So I mean.
Yeah, right, exactly. It is down there and kind of.
But I mean, John's right. I mean, how do you defeat the army of the dead without the dragons and without the Unsullied, without the? How do you even stand somewhat of a chance? You don't.
Oh, of course he's right, but I mean, we're dealing with an age where they don't have the internet or YouTube, so these people have no clue who she is. They've probably already heard horror stories of the Battle of the Loot Train. I mean, we get that too down this episode, and that doesn't go over well with Samwell. So they're very cautious of her, and it shows. And they're especially after the lessons Sansa's learned and Aria, they're not going to fucking trust anyone as far as they can throw them unless their name ends in Stark.
I think anyone who doesn't believe that the army of the dead is coming should hop on a dragon. Danny and John should take him up and be like, look, there's the army. Let's turn around and go back and fight them. Like,
yeah, of course.
Like,
I mean, yeah, at this point, they're just being stupid.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is just the torture and torment they've gone through since leaving Winterfell in episode 1. I mean, these Sansa especially has been fucked over so many times. I mean, she can't trust anyone anymore, only family. So I do get it a bit, but sometimes you're like, hey, people, let's go. I mean, you're bored. Like, Sansa, I think, is almost at Cersei levels of ridiculous hate for this Danny girl over something because she's not a Stark.
Yeah.
But I think it'll get there. If not, everyone's going to be shit out of luck. So.
I'm just tired of hearing John say, I've looked into the Night King's eyes. I've talked. Like, all right, yeah, we get it. Yeah. Like,
we believe you, buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, we feel for you. We know you don't have an iPhone X to record it and share it on your Insta.
He should have brought back another way to prove to the North. While he was there, just grab the second one.
Yeah, they should just carry one around. Almost like make it a pet. Throw it in one of those little wheeled cages that they kept poor Tyrion and Varys in on the ride up, and just bring it with you. Because at this point, people still don't believe the fucking man, even though they literally talked about the wall coming down in the Hall of Winterfell.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally know that the fucking wall melted. So At some point, you're right. It's like, guys, come on, give the girl a break. We know she's a Targaryen, and her father was called the Mad King. And yes, the Mad King did kill your two uncles. Big deal. Maybe she's not that nuts, even though she basically fried the leader and heir of another house of Westeros. We let's not bring that up. Okay, so moving on. Clearly, this was going to be a top moment, regardless of how it went down, and I think it went down in a way that was unexpected, and that was the reunion of Jon and Arya, at least to me, and I think to Jon too, right, guys? Because Jon and Arya were the closest, Starks. I mean, she was the closest to the bastard Stark back in season 1. I mean, they are a true brother-sister, but true best friends within the group. So I think Jon came back and knew Arya was there. He met her in the weirwood. I loved how she surprised them, or the Godswood, whatever they call it. Weirwood, I believe, is Lord of the Rings, right?
Weirwood is the tree.
It's a tree, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm not that fucked up. So anyways, first off, she ninjas him. Like, she uses her new talents on him and literally just appears behind him. But as he's given his pitch and pretty much expecting Arya just to buy into him and his support of Danny, she kind of flips the script on him. She's like, yo, motherfucker, I'm with Sansa. Mm-hmm. And you should think about family first too, bro. Little does she know, he is thinking about his family first, because Danny is much more of a blood relative now than they are.
Yeah.
So were you guys surprised by Arya's reaction, or did you kind of expect that, she's now 100% Team Stark, Team Sansa?
I kind of expected it. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit surprised when she said Sansa's the smartest person I know. She's not wrong, especially nowadays, because you made the point, Matt, that she's at like Cersei levels of hate. She's also operating on near Cerseian levels of like badassery as far as strategy.
Oh, dude, I mean, we didn't talk about it, but how about her dressing down of Tyrion?
Oh my God, it was beautiful. That was
another great
beautiful
moment, because last time we those two were together, she was the feeble one, really had no say in the game. He was a big game player, and now basically he's a lowly advisor that gives shitty advice, and now she is a lady of Winterfell, making decisions, playing the game.
And playing it really well.
Yeah, and she told him straight up, she's like, dude, you're a fucking loser. What happened to you? Like, how could Tyrion ever believe Cersei Lannister was ever telling him the truth? So I did like that kind of flipping of the roles that those two had. But you're right, and we talked about, I believe, when we were hashing out season 7, like what she did with Littlefinger was masterful. I mean, she has learned her lessons from two of the best game players in Westeros, Cersei and Littlefinger. So she is definitely a dangerous person to deal with. And I wouldn't be surprised if she does something stupid while thinking it was the right decision. But
much like Tyrion, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's still to play out. But, I mean, obviously the reunion between these two is going to be huge. They haven't seen each other since the first season, just like most of them. And I hate pumping this behind-the-scenes thing, because it's not like I have a stake in it. But they talked about how both Kit and Misc really haven't seen each other either. So it was almost a natural reaction to seeing someone, your co-actor, when they did that scene. So that's pretty cool, too. All right, so clearly, if you're following along, you can see with all the caps, this was, to me, the fanboy moment of the series, right? I mean, it was up there with confirming that Jon's name was Aegon. But we get to see Jon Targaryen, Aegon, ride a fucking dragon, right? I mean, is this not something everyone's been waiting for since the dawn of time?
Yeah, I mean, and you got kind of hints of it last season when they're at Dragonstone, and
he was like touching Drogon's nose and shit.
So you knew it was just a matter of time. And as you mentioned in your piece, it's Rhaegal, the dragon, for whom his father was, basically, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it was definitely exciting to see. I don't know how much I enjoyed the actual dragon riding scene once it took place.
Kind of hokey for Game of Thrones, man.
Very.
I mean, it was like a Star Wars prequels level, like CG nonsense.
Thank you. I mean, all that money they're pumping into it, and the CGI still looks a little shaky on there. it lasted a little longer than I probably needed it to, and the fact that they spent all that CGI on the two dragons, but still can't find Ghost.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. What the fuck? Yeah, that's a great point. Where's this fucking dog at?
He was back in Winterfell before, and Ghost wasn't anywhere to be found. He's back in Winterfell again.
Where is Ghost though? Did he
laughed,
get left at the wall?
I laughed at there's some like theory or rumor or whatever going around that that Ghost has actually died, and that's the coat that Danny's wearing because it's all white. Like,
Oh,
I'm like, all right, that's a little stupid, but
no.
I just had to laugh at that. But it's like, where is he then?
No, it's a good point because they've at least
He was-
made it clear that the other dire wolves have been taken out, or the one literally just became wild again
Right.
and doesn't want to fuck around with the Starks.
Because the last time we see Ghost, I believe, is after Jon wakes up from.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
From
So is
death.
he still stuck up at the wall? Because that's what season 6 shit at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but
Unless he's like the dog in Neverending Story, and he's the one that's flying everybody to these locations really quickly. And they just haven't felt like showing it yet, right?
So
So Jon has had his own
Ghost
special
can fly,
type of-
by the way. Let's add that in there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Falcor's a wish dragon, so technically, if Ghost is Falcor, then Jon's had a dragon the entire time, man.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
you just
hell
blew
yeah,
my
dude.
mind, Keith.
Man, I haven't watched that movie in a lot. That movie used to freak me the
Oh
fuck
yeah,
out.
when I was
as
a little kid, that the scene,
That
the
dog,
scene where
man.
the scene where the horse is stuck in the quicksand or the mud.
yeah, and the
killed
fucking
me every
wolf-
time.
Pit of sadness or pits of despair or whatever.
Yeah, killed me every
Yeah,
time.
it's that, and then that damn wolf that's chasing fucking Atreyu the whole time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just fucked with me. Anyways, you know what? At first, when I was watching this dragon scene, I'm like, why the fuck is Rhaegal green? Like, I thought he was the red one. And I'm like, no.
No,
some reason-
Rhaegal's green, Drogon's black, and Viserion was
yellow.
Gold.
like yellow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I thought there was a red one, but for some reason, there's a red one in my head. Either way, I did like the moment just for the fact that this is something fans, I think, have wanted to see or at least read. And it just further shows, and really Danny at this point should be getting hints that fucking Jon Snow isn't Jon fucking Snow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she knows the lore about Targaryens, right?
Yeah.
That
So
only they can ride dragons. And Nick, you're still, I know you're still kind of holding on to Tyrion could be one too, because there was an exchange between him and the two dragons that were basically imprisoned in Meereen, right? And does he touch them, or does they just let him take the chains off?
I think he actually gets a hand on him once they let him get close enough. I mean, I don't know how you get that close to a dragon and not touch it, but
Because I mean, the lore is here basically no one but Targaryens can get close to dragons, right? Or at least ride them.
supposedly, yeah. That's the lore. That's the
And you'd think Danny would know that, and the fact that Jon just basically, last season, as Nick brought up, literally goes up to the biggest and baddest, and Drogon almost bows to him.
yeah. Well,
Like,
and it's the
here,
sort of,
you can touch me, you can pet me, you're cool. I know who you are. You're cool. I can smell it.
yeah, and even before Jon gets on Rhaegal, he looks at Danny and she's like, "Go on," and he's like, "What if he doesn't like it?" And she goes, "Then I enjoyed your company." Like,
Yeah, and
like
even
she was
even-
willing to risk his life, and he was like,
Yeah,
"All right,
right.
let's try it." So you wonder, did Danny have control somewhat over Rhaegal, or does she know that there's something about Jon that she can't
You would
wipe her
think
finger
just
on?
like it's going to be weird, but like a pet owner, you can usually sense the temperament of your beast, especially around other people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that came into play, but Rhaegal literally presented himself to Jon.
Right.
Like, here you go, dude. I'll dip my fucking wing down so you can get up. I mean, he knew exactly what was going on.
So now, do you think do you think that Rhaegal is now Jon's dragon?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like they're the rider binded together, so to speak.
They've essentially
Yeah.
bonded. I mean, I
Which-
think we will see him on this thing fighting. at
Yeah,
some point.
which could come into play if there's any sort of fight between Danny and Jon at some point.
That, or we can get some fucking good old air battles
Yeah.
between those two and the
With
Night King
King.
on some
Yeah.
fucking
Let's go.
dragons.
Let's go.
Have we ever seen a dragon to dragon dogfight? I mean, that'd be fucking dope visually, if anything else.
I mean, if it's not like Top Gun, I don't know what else they would do.
Yeah. We're gonna ride to the danger zone.
That's what I can't wait for, when we get the dragon battle and someone on Twitter puts the danger zone in the background as
some
music.
80s rock.
That's what I want. Yeah. Even so, here's the funny part. When I was watching the episode, and the dragons flew over the town and flew over Winterfell. In my head, I went, permission to do a flyby, negative, Ghost Rider, the pattern is full, just like they do on Top Gun. Like, that was where my head went right away. Like, that's how absurd I am with Top Gun.
And Danny was the one calling the flyby and being the fucking smartass.
Yeah, exactly.
You
She's
saw
Maverick.
her smile, like, she loved
she's
that.
Maverick, John is Goose. There it is.
Okay, now, I mean, again, yeah, it looked a little wonky at times, but it was fun. I mean, it was kind of... We don't really get to see lighthearted moments like that too often in Game of Thrones, because essentially what this was, guys, is it was a date for Jon and Danny. It was an escape
It was a date
for them.
where the kids were involved.
Right, yeah, they wanted to go out, they wanted to make out a bit and not get everyone up in Winterfell buzzing around, and Nick's right. I mean, literally, just like if you have pets and you've ever been making love and they get in the room and you turn around and you look and they're looking at you and it's a very awkward moment. That kind of went down between Drogon and Jon. So
I hated that so
fun.
much. I'm not gonna lie, I hated it.
Yeah. It was, like I said, a little too cheeky for the tone of Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole thing was kind of a little different than what we're used to.
Yeah,
it almost seemed like we were watching a positive show
where good things happen.
Right.
Yeah, I mentioned this to Nick in the email exchange, but like the writing felt really kind of like quippy, almost like we were watching, one of the MCU films, and the whole like, Drogon throwing side eye felt very like, all right, somebody's been spending a little bit too much time watching Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, they're no Taika.
Yeah,
you leave that type of shit to Taika, right? I mean, plus it's not universe appropriate in my mind. It didn't get me all bent, but it definitely was like, okay, this feels out of place in the Game of Thrones universe, at least based on the 7 seasons of tone that has been set. I mean, if we've been getting splashes of this throughout the series, then fine, it probably wouldn't have been that odd. But I'm with you, dude. It definitely is like, okay. All right, this is Game of Thrones, not fucking Star Wars or MCU, so I got you.
Yeah.
All right, next up, bunch of reunions here, people. It was to be expected. We're talking 2 years for us humans and multiple years for the people in the show, but I'm glad that we got the reunion of the Hound, Aria, and Gendry all wrapped up in one nice scene, and the directors actually talked about that too. I mean, the writers were like, yeah, we didn't want to just make this one big reunion episode, even though it kind of was, so we kind of jam this triangle in, and I liked in particular how the reunion went down between the Hound and Aria, because the Hound loves the girl deep down, but he's the Hound and he will never show it, just like Aria has an appreciation for him, but she's also has a tough exterior, will never show it. So they basically greeted each other as they left, like, hey, fuck you, I hate you, you're a piece of shit. Fuck you too, suck a dick. But deep down, we respect each other. See you later, right? I mean, is that kind of how it went down to you guys, or how'd you interpret their reunion?
Yeah, that was. I mean, I don't know what else could be interpreted from that exchange.
But don't you feel like they both deep down respect each other and almost care for each other because of their experience?
Absolutely. I mean, he even said, you left me for dead. She had a chance to finish him off, to cross him off the list. But something stopped her from doing that. And
I just didn't she say like, oh yeah, well I robbed you first?
Yeah, he goes, you left me to die, and he goes, first I robbed you. And then they kind of smiled without actually smiling.
That's what I mean. It's like these two will never show their affection for each other or their mutual respect, and that's why I love their dynamic, because it is just. It's like big brother, little sister type of shit, where the big guy's always picking on the little one's always doing shit to get the big one upset. But deep down, that they would go to war for each other and probably lay down their life for the other. So it was a neat reunion between these two. Definitely not the typical reunion most people experience when you haven't seen someone for a long time. It's usually kisses, hugs. Oh my God, this was like I said, fuck you too. All right, you're still alive, cool.
Yeah.
So, but we also got the Gendry reunion, and that obviously was different. He still thinks she's some prim and proper lady, and little does he know what she is now. So, what'd you guys think about her and Gendry? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the weapon that he's gonna make her.
so what do you think that is? I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at.
I just pulled up a picture of it online that someone had taken a screenshot of. It looks like a spear that comes apart in two pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the proper name for a weapon like that is, but that's basically what it looks like. So
I think it's going to house her Valyrian blade, right? The knife she got.
Well, I don't know, because the tip of it is made out of dragon glass. So I don't know if it's a completely separate weapon or if it's a mod that she's going to use with the dagger. Which, going back to the scene with Jon real quick, when they're comparing weapons, she pulls out needle, he pulls out long claw, and she's like, "Do you have any more Valyrian steel for me?" I'm like, "You have one on your hip. Like, don't be greedy." But yeah, I'm curious to see what this weapon is and how she'll use it. We do see in the trailer some quick cut action scenes of her, presumably with that weapon. You don't really get a good look at it because she's moving so quickly. But yeah, it was good to see them back together. He's calling her milady, calling her.
I want him to see the new Aria.
Yeah,
like I want a lot of these people to see the new Aria. Really, no one knows yet. I mean, Sansa got a glimpse of it when she was training with Brienne, but no one knows what the fuck she can
even
do.
when she sliced Littlefinger's throat, then that put the nail in the coffin there for
Yeah,
Sansa.
I mean, anyone could sneak up and slice his throat. I'm talking like this motherfucker can chop off people's faces and become them, and then slice.
Sansa saw the bag of faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But she hasn't seen it used yet.
Exactly, and like I said, she materialized behind Jon. I mean, she is clearly probably the most skilled assassin at Winterfell right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not even probably, she is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she's a better hand-to-hand melee combat fighter than Jon or Brienne. Like, we've never seen her in a traditional skirmish. But we know she can fuck some shit up when the shadows are involved. So, I don't know. I feel like this weapon is going to be key, or they wouldn't have focused on the plans being passed over. I know they didn't, zoom in on it, hey, people, pay attention to this. But that's also why I believe that this thing is going to be key in probably the Battle of Winterfell. It's either going to be something that gets them out so some can escape, or it may take down a major foe. Who knows? What do you guys think? I mean, do you think this weapon is more than just, oh, look, there she is with the weapon Gendry was making for her? Or do you think, like me, it's going to have a standout moment?
I mean, it might have a standout moment, especially if it's some sort of twin blade. We saw her getting pretty daggone good at fighting with a stick when she was training to be a faceless man. And I have a feeling like we're going to see some really fun whirly-twirly action. Gotcha. And yeah, I could totally see her using it to take down a White Walker. Because I don't necessarily see the cat's paw dagger coming into play unless it's like a last resort thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's a very up close and personal weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Keith too. As far as the weapon itself, I think it's just that. I think it's just a weapon. We touched on this a little bit in our email exchange, but Keith asked me about what Gendry's role is, and honestly, I think he's there to make weapons and to fight. I don't think there's going to be too much beyond that. So I think
me neither.
He already created a hammer for the Hound out of dragon glass. We saw that. He's going to make this weapon for Aria. So I think that's his big role pre-fight.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So I think they focus on that for Aria because she wants a new weapon out of dragon glass, and he's the one that can make it.
All right.
Aria just likes fancy weapons.
Yeah.
I feel like the focus on that, it's going to mean something. The weapon's going to have a shining moment, if you will. Even if it's her pulling it out and doing some badass twirly flips with it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get its time in the spotlight, and I'm going with it. It may be a linchpin type of weapon to free them or do something stand outish more than just, Jon swinging Longclaw around, something like that. When I first saw it, I didn't look it up online. From what I saw, again, this is far out shit. This is just me, glancing at the sheet of paper. I was like, this is some sort of sling weapon where she's gonna fucking sling it up and take out the Night King on the dragon or some shit like David and Goliath. So that goes to show you how far I went into research what the actual diagram looked like. But
maybe it's almost like a baton, like Daredevil uses sometimes, where
exactly, or like a fucking
shoots out
blow
one
dart.
And she can whip it back, something like that, maybe.
She's going to be blow dart and dragon glass at people from the ramparts. I don't know. I feel like we're going to see this weapon outside of just her holding it and using it. But, hey, we'll find out. And whoever's right or wrong, we'll make sure to make fun of the other people on the cast where we figure it out. So you guys can make fun of me, and then I'll make fun of you if I was right.
Deal.
Okay, so clearly a big one here. And it stemmed from another good moment. I didn't put it in there, but obviously the moment when Danny comes down to thank Sam by telling him that she murdered his dad and brother. I thought that was an interesting way to go about thanking. I mean, I know she didn't know, but she pretty much rolls down like, hey, man, thanks for saving Jorah. Oh, you're a Tarly? By the way, I fucking fried your dad and your brother. I know you probably don't care about your dad, but you probably loved your brother, and now you're going to hate me. So he gets that news, runs out. Like, Sam's just fucking devastated.
That was gut-wrenching.
Yeah, I mean, the way he handled it, too.
I'll be able to go home because my brother's Lord. She's like, ooh, about that.
Yeah, actually, buddy, it's your castle. Ta-da! I know you may have renounced your titles when you joined the Watch, but hey, ta-da! Surprise! Happy birthday! But I loved how Sam handled it because he handled it very Sam-like. He sat there and took it like, okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for telling me. Yes, my lady. Yes, queen. Blah, blah, blah. But you tell it was fucking destroying him. I don't think that the news of his dad, but his brother definitely was like, ah, fuck. She could be just as nutty as the Mad King. I mean, this is exactly what the Mad King did to the Stark dad and brother. Like, what the fuck? Literally killed the ruler of the house and his direct heir with fire. So that shook him big time. So he runs out. Who's he see sitting in the courtyard? Creepy boy. Creepy boy says, listen, it's time. You need to tell him you're more of a brother to him than I am. And he's right. I mean, at this point, Bran is no longer a Stark. Bran is way the fuck out there. I mean, he's a guy that you expect to meet at Burning Man after tripping on LSD for a week straight. Like, he is literally in his own world at this point. And he just drops things that a soothsayer would. Like, hey, you need to go down there now and tell him. Well, why don't you come? Because I'm waiting for somebody. Well, Bran, it's fucking dark and it's late out. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing, right? I mean, that's how that played out. So Sam goes down, and what's the big thing he has to tell? Well, he tells Jon the big deal. So, guys, first and foremost, what'd you think of the reveal? Were you happy with the way it went down?
Well, we've decided to call this the egg drop.
Okay.
So the
I don't know if that's good or bad. It sounds bad.
Well, the egg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, yeah,
and
I've been sitting here wondering. I've been sitting here wondering for like the last 20 minutes. Like, should we be calling Jon Egg John from now on?
Yeah, I think you're right. We need to, because he's not really John. I don't think they'll ever refer to him as Aegon on the show, but I think we should.
Yeah, God, I'm sorry.
John
I'm sorry for my horrible jokes, everybody.
Jagon.
Jagon. I mean, I loved the decision to sort of keep the camera on Jon's face and just let Kit Harington do his thing. Thought that was really cool. I was honestly kind of surprised that this whole thing happened in the first episode, although I'm glad it did happen in the first episode.
Me too. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we've known it has been coming for quite some time now. And I don't know. It played out pretty much exactly how I expected it to.
All right, so it sounds like you were pleased with it. I loved it. I mean, yes, I would love 10 episodes. I would love to got extended in episode 2, but this is where we live in. For some reason, HBO and the people that work on it felt like shortening everything. Whatever, but yeah, we got it hard and fast towards the end of the first episode. But like Keith said, I do think we need to kind of get that out of the room. You know, we had to address that elephant. Because we still have to address the other elephant, and that is telling everyone else, including Danny. So I'm glad that they kind of at least got John in the know now. And Nick, I believe we were talking about this, or maybe all three of us in one of our precasts, but we were all kind of speculating on how John would handle the news. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he handled it exactly the way we said he would, and it's basically deny it, accept it, but not want it whatsoever.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you see all of those emotions on his face, kind of one right after the other. You know, he thinks Sam's talking to him about King of the North, and Sam's like, no, the king of the whole bloody 7 kingdoms. Like
6 of his name.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, John is initially distraught because
he says treason at first.
Well, right,
so that's treason.
But he's distraught personally because he grew up thinking Ned Stark was his father, and Ned Stark was supposedly the most honorable man in all the
that's not a reaction I anticipated at all. Mm-hmm. His disappointment in the fact that Ned lied to him his whole life.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I was not expecting that because you would think John would ultimately understand why Ned did what he did, but you could tell it really fucking bothered him.
Well, and Sam even reminds him of that. He's like, look, he made his sister a promise to keep you safe and to protect you, and he did. Like, he was honorable, but he did lie to John. And, of course, you know, we go back to episode 1 when John and Ned are parting ways, and John's asking about his mother, and Ned's like, well, the next time we see each other, and we'll talk about it. But obviously that didn't happen. So, seeing that realization come over John's face, seeing him worry about what he thinks of Ned and his legacy, even though he grew up under Ned's teachings, you know, for his whole life.
And I think he came to grips with it there, but ultimately he wants nothing to do with it. I mean, that's how I felt at the end. I mean, Sam kind of leaves him with the open-ended question of, hey, man, you gave up your kingdom for her. Will she do the same for you?
Well, and that goes back to Sam's earlier question, too, about, you know, if it were you, would you have burned my father and brother? And John's like, you know, I've put the sword to many men, and Sam's like, well, you've also spared some, when he was talking about the wildlings. And so that was kind of interesting from Sam's point of view to see how John would handle that same situation that Danny would have been in. And John didn't really have a good answer for that.
No, I mean, Sam's still shook at this point. Like, he just learned that this queen that everyone and John had been telling him is a pretty good lady and we should get behind her. He just learned that she executed her dad and brother because they didn't bend the knee. Me personally, I don't quite see that as nutty as what the Mad King did to Daddy Stark and Brandon Stark. Because he literally just fucking fried them because they were bitching that they thought that Rhaegal stole Lyanna and was raping her or something. Mm-hmm. So they're like, hey, dude, what the fuck's going on with your kids? Like, you're the king. Let's get this shit under control. And he literally just burned them there in the hall in King's Landing. Here, Danny was like, listen, I win. You bend the knee and follow me, and we'll do some righteous shit, or you're dead. So... Yeah. You know,
they were offered a choice. Yeah, they at least had a choice, but it's still gonna haunt Sam regardless.
Well, Viserys and Tyrion were and Tyrion were like, "Yo, that was fucked up. Like, this is not good. I mean, this is gonna spread throughout Westeros, and people are gonna think you're a little nutty, and it's happening." So. I don't know. It was. I love the reveal. I'm glad we got it. Yes, I would have loved longer episodes and things to be drawn out more like they used to. It's just not happening. And I did think John, outside of the Ned thing, reacted exactly as we thought. I can't wait to see how he's dealing with it in episode 2. Like, now, obviously, he's going to have some time to let it sink in. How's he going to be handling himself in episode 2? And will Danny know by the end of episode 2? What do you guys think? Do you think more people know by the end of episode 2, or do you think John kind of sits on this for a bit?
Great question. I think if we go back to what we talked about earlier with a lot of the scenes from the trailers coming in the first episode and likely the second and third, we do see scenes of Jon and Danny together. I believe in the crypts, then again in front of a fire. So my best guess is that he does tell her in this next episode. I don't.
All right.
I was curious if he tells her before or if he waits till after the battle because, he didn't want any emotions that might change or,
Right.
Deals regarding allies change now that he has a better claim to the throne. But Ned Stark's, adopted son and will tell her, I'm sure, in the next episode.
Sure. Yeah, he's really bad about keeping secrets or doing anything that's even remotely deceitful.
Yeah, I don't see him making it too long.
Yeah,
I guess I just wonder.
If it's not in the first 10 minutes of the next episode, I bet it's like the closing shot.
Yeah.
Like her, oh, I've been diddling my nephew.
How do you think she deals with it outside the diddling? Do you think she demands proof? Do you think she takes him at his word and she's disappointed that she's not the ruler? Or do you think she develops some sort of hate for him?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Hate's probably too
like the
strong. You never
hardest
know
question.
with the Targaryens, though, but you
Yeah.
got to feel like she's going to be disappointed.
Yeah. And I mean, you touched on it a little bit earlier when we were talking about the dragon riding scene. I mean, I feel like the fact that he was able to ride Rhaegal the way that he did,
Yeah.
so freely and a little nerve wracking at first, but then he got the hang of it. She has to feel like there's something going on with him now. Whether she puts it together, but is another story.
I could honestly see her going it's about time you finally figured it out. That would be hilarious if she played it off that way. I mean, Danny she's tends to be emotional. It's a reserved emotion these days. I mean, it would be funny, if she's just yeah, no shit, Aegon, how you doing?
Yeah.
You finally figured it out. You guys ready? Let's be real Targaryens now and keep fucking and have some babies.
Oh, she's like, here's the honeymoon picture from my brother and sister-in-law.
Yeah. So, I guess it's funny to talk about the whole sex stuff. I don't know if it really put Danny off at all. I mean, that's what her family did.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
That's what they do.
Exactly.
Jon, on the other hand, who knows? I mean, they're removed a little bit. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, fuck. It's not like they're brother and sister. Shit. Jaime and Cersei did that, and not that many people even think it's that weird. So, kind of diddling with your family in Westeros isn't as big of a deal as I think some of the fans make it out to be. I think the bigger gut for Danny is she's going to have to cope with the fact that she's not the queen. She doesn't have the best claim.
Yeah.
Because that's been her driving force from season 1.
Yeah, I think it's going to be what we've seen from Jon every time he's put in faced with a leadership decision. It's like, I don't want it. I never asked for this. But you know what? You're a good leader anyway. He's proven that. So he's probably going to end up with it unless something drastic happens.
All right, so hopefully we'll get a little more light shed on this, the whole Aegon and Danny love circle, I guess we'll call it.
I like that we settled on the word diddling too. So
yeah, why not? Oh yeah, but yeah, I guess we saw some softcore porn at the end of season 7. We haven't seen any just hardcore stuff, so we'll stick with diddling and petting.
Well, let's talk about Bronn. I mean, there was that scene in the brothel. So
Yeah, you gotta love Bronn's one scene. He's in an orgy.
yeah.
That's my man. But yeah, how about that? Bronn being sent to assassinate his best bros with the Lannister crossbow that was used to kill Tywin, and it belonged to Joffrey, I believe. So.
Yeah. So I didn't catch it right away the first time, but when I rewatched the episode, in the brothel, the girls that were gossiping about a ginger named Eddie in the
Oh
Lannister
yeah. I
army.
saw this making its way on the internet. Go ahead, Nick. Tell
So
us.
it's like, oh, Ed Sheeran. Sorry that he got his face burned off or whatever it was, but yeah, I thought that was a nice callback.
Yeah, I kind of stepped on him, but basically, if you're listening to the whores chattering, they were talking about a Lannister serviceman that got his face burned off, but he's still alive. He has no eyelids and he can't see anymore. And a lot of people and his name was Ed, and a lot of people took that as the Game of Thrones bros kind of giving the fans what they wanted after they didn't like seeing him get that cameo in season 7. So that was kind of funny.
Hey, if he can still sing in the show, then who needs eyesight, right?
Exactly. As long as he can still, as long as his lips didn't get melted together, I think his singing career is going to take off. So last moment, guys, as we wrap up this episode and kind of do a brief look towards episode 2. But that ending, especially with the foreshadowing of Bran telling Sam, I'm waiting for someone. Because I was like, who the fuck is he waiting for? Jaime, honestly, guys, I don't know about you. I completely forgot about him until the very end. And I think that might have been on design, on purpose. Because I loved, you just, they pull up, you see this traveler, and you're like, who the fuck is this? Like, why are they focus on this guy? And then lo and behold, he throws the cloak back. We see who it is. And who does he lock eyes with immediately? The creep, right? And it mirrors what happened at the end of season 1. I mean, this is what ultimately sent Bran on his journey and ultimately sent Jaime on his. And the face that Jaime makes is a face of, oh, fuck. I just walked into my death, essentially. Because he, for all we know, well, for all Jaime knows, Bran's still Bran Stark. He got fucked up. He's been in a wheelchair, and he's the Lord of Winterfell. And he's fucking pissed, and he's going to kill the guy that broke his back. I mean, that's how Jaime, at least I did some reading. I mean, that's how the actor went into it. And that's really the reaction Jaime gave us with his face. Like, fuck. I knew I was going to catch shit coming up here to the north as a Lannister. But now that he's still alive, and he's probably the Lord, and he probably wants to be dead, I am fucked.
Yeah, and I mean, going back a couple seasons when Theon took over Winterfell and burned those farmers' kids, do we know that Jaime knows that Bran actually wasn't dead? Did that news travel?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, for all we know,
that's the other part of it too is that Jaime could have thought Bran had been dead when Theon claimed to have killed him.
Good point.
Yeah. So,
but I did see on Twitter or something that scene with Bran and Jaime, very serious moment there, obviously, but they threw behind it the Curb Your Enthusiasm music, and it just made it a million times funnier to me. It was great. But yeah, I did like how the show ended on that scene. When the hooded rider was coming through, I didn't once think, "Oh, that's Jaime." I just he was just completely out of mind for me.
Yeah, that's how I was too. I mean,
and then once he gets off the horse, I'm like, "Oh, that's right. Jaime was on a horse." Puts the hood down, starts walking, looks over, sees Bran, who is still sitting in the same spot where Sam left him.
That's who he was waiting. He was waiting for Jaime. He knew he was coming, and why is Bran so interested in him coming? I mean, on the outside looking in, Jaime thinks it's probably because Bran wants to get revenge, but we know it's going to be way deeper than that. Mm-hmm. Why was Bran waiting maybe even overnight, right? Because it was dark when Sam went out there, then it was light when Jaime showed up. Why was he waiting on Jaime?
Yeah, and I mean, even when Sam meets Bran, he goes, "What are you doing out here?" And Bran says, "I'm waiting for an old friend." I first thought he was talking about Sam, because it was like, oh, by the way, it's time to tell Jon. But he's actually referring to Jaime, which I didn't realize till the second time through, and I thought about it a little bit more. So I'm really curious. We see in the trailer for the second episode, Jaime in the hall in front of everybody. So Keith and I talked about it as one of our most anticipated moments for the next episode.
Yeah. So I guess I'm different from you guys. The second I saw, figure in, nice looking black cloak channeled my inner season 5 Bronn. I was just like, that's Jaime fucking Lannister.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
Again,
he's writing the show.
Again, I literally just watched season 7, episode 6, like 36 hours before, and one of the last shots of that last episode is Jaime riding north. So it's just like,
I believe he's wearing that garb too. He just didn't have the hood up yet.
Yeah. So it's like, all right, I get it. I'm with you guys. I was honestly kind of surprised that his arrival at Winterfell took place in episode 1. I was maybe thinking that was going to sort of, first 10 or 15 minutes of episode 2, he's going to show up and it's going to be a big thing. But I'm with you both. I loved the fact that they ended the episode on that look between the two of them.
Oh yeah. So let's just real quickly. What are we gonna predict for episode 2? I mean, we've seen the teaser, and just with Jaime's arrival, I believe that the first quarter episode's probably gonna be his faux trial, if you will, in the hall. I mean, he's definitely getting dressed down. He's coming to tell them that Cersei fucking lied to them all. But again, he's in the North. People, just as they reacted to Tyrion, they're not going to be a big fan of this Lannister. So I think he's going to catch some shit. It's going to be a little difficult. But ultimately, and I was off, I thought episode 2 was going to be the Battle of Winterfell. I believe this is going to be the peace-setting episode. Everyone's going to be positioned where they need to go. People are going to be at Winterfell that need to be there. The heroes are going to be where they need to be, this, that, and the other thing. And I believe one of the last shots or the closing will be that shot of the White Walker horse coming down, so we know, all right, episode 3 is going to be that 48, 50-minute long action sequence. What do you guys think?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
I got something right.
Yeah, and I mean, if we want to dive into it too, there's the whole incident with Tormund and Beric and Ed.
Oh yeah, they're gonna
Ned
make it to
Umber.
Winterfell.
So,
yep.
They're gonna double up on horses. They're gonna try and outrun the Night King to give everyone at Winterfell a warning. So I think you're right though, Matt. I think second episode it's gonna be war preparation. I think we're gonna see more of what's going on in King's Landing with Cersei, Euron, the Golden Company. Maybe a little bit more with Yara and Theon.
I think Theon will just arrive at Winterfell.
Yeah, he'll show up
I
at
think
Winterfell.
so. I think so too.
And do you guys think this whole Iron Islands as the bastion of safety is going to play out? I do.
That seemed weak to me. The way that Yara is so gung-ho about, one, helping Danny, but also that she's this fierce leader. And then she's like, oh, we're going to backtrack. Now, unless that was already planned ahead of time by her and Danny, I guess that makes sense.
I guess what I'm saying is, do you think we could see the good guys or the living fucking head towards the Iron Islands to try and regroup and do something to get rid of the Night King because the army can't easily cross the ocean? I mean, that's what they're implying. Mm-hmm. I believe even Euron implied that at the end of season 7 when he pretended he was leaving. He's like, hey, they can't cross water, right? Okay, I'm out. Yeah. Like, I'm going back to my island. Fuck you guys.
Yeah, I'm not if the Night King and the White Walkers are sentient beings that can think and act freely, can't they manage a ship or convince their army to get on a ship? And
I guess, I mean, yes.
Or fly their ice dragon over and start making more.
Like real world, yes,
Yeah.
But the fact that they had to get through the wall and couldn't use any of the oceans that everyone else was using to travel around, I mean, I guess that's just the physics of the show.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because the way, especially with the Aftermath teaser, that kind of bodes doom for Winterfell, even if it was more of a symbolic trailer, they're going to have to retreat somewhere if Winterfell presumably fall. So
right.
Is it
is
it to King's Landing where Cersei and the Golden Company are waiting for him, or
exactly.
More likely it's probably going to be the Iron Islands.
That's just kind of what I was thinking. Just the fact that they made a point of Yara saying, "Hey, now that he's gone, I should go back and recapture just in case we need the Iron Islands as essentially a backup plan." Mm-hmm. And that's where she could tell Theon wanted to go back and be with the Starks. So. The one thing we didn't mention, just real briefly before we wrap, we got, what are they called, Keith? Is it called a mandala? The symbol that the Night King draws, like this pinwheel thing? I think I've heard that term thrown around for. But anyways,
yeah, that makes sense to me because that's sort of.
We got another look at the Night King's favorite drawing, which is essentially a spiral pattern, which dates all the way back to where he was formed. So of course, people are sitting there going, "What the fuck does it mean?" Some people were saying that when the Umbor boy was in the middle and a bunch of legs were behind them in that pinwheel and it lit up, that it looks kind of like the House Targaryen sigil and blah, blah, blah. I mean, clearly this symbol means something. I don't even know where to fucking go with it yet, so it's nothing I want to dive into, but clearly the Night King's art is going to maybe explain the reveal when it comes or help the reveal. I don't know, but it's got to mean something at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean it's permeated the series from
the
opening moments of
the first episode.
Yeah,
right.
And like Mance Rayder points out, it's always the artist.
They had the horses in the pinwheel. I mean, all the cave drawings on Dragonstone. So what the fuck is it? What does it mean? Why does he keep doing it? This one was my favorite, obviously, with got a little boy stapled to a wall with chopped off legs all around him. I mean, it's pretty creative. I give the Night King high marks on that one.
Oh, and I loved the combustion when Beric sticks him with the sword. God, that was fucking cool.
Yeah, that dude lit up. Again, that's covered in behind the scenes. They show like how the stunt guy was propped on there and the prosthetics they put on. Highly recommend it, my friends. Check it out after we're done casting. You will not be disappointed. Go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, going back to the spiral pinwheel thing there, I mean, obviously you had mentioned it briefly there where we see it in Bran's vision where the children of the forest are lined up in that formation as they plunge the dragonglass into the first man there to make him the Night King. So I don't know if that's just more of a I remember what you did
right
kind of thing, or if maybe there is in fact something else to it.
He's planning on making everybody White Walkers just like him.
The thing with the Targaryen sigil and people trying to latch on that the Night King's a Targaryen, I'm not even going to get into that because based on Westerosi history, the Targaryens have only been on Westeros for what, maybe 300 years?
Mm-hmm.
So they were not around the long night. They were not on the continent. So I don't know. Who knows? Like I said, nothing for us to dive in now. It should all be revealed, hopefully. I don't think this is going to be a show for the most part, that's going to leave much open-ended. I mean, I guess we heard Ian kind of explain that the ending's fantastic, but it's done in a way that people can kind of ponder about what may happen next. What would the characters do next, or what is this character doing? Who knows? But I hope we do get some sort of insights into the Night King's art. All right, boys, I think we did it. I think we put Game of Thrones S8E1 Winterfell to bed, did the recap, the top moments, our consensus feel. I think overall, obviously, we're super fans. We fucking enjoyed it. Could it have been a little bit better, a little more action-packed, a little longer? Of course. But in the end, it's Game of Thrones. It's new Game of Thrones. And it's starting to work itself towards the end game. That's what we want. Not the end game that's happening next Thursday. But this end game that's been playing out for over 20 years at this point. And according to the creator, it's not even going to be remotely like the real end game. But hey, go fuck yourself, George. Thanks, pal.
And then he came back and said, oh, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to do this and do some of that and add some of this in. And I'm basically going to rewrite the whole thing because now I feel like an asshole. But hey, whatever. Fuck him. Seriously. Fuck him. I love him and I fucking hate him. It's one of those deals. It's kind of like a George Lucas, but more intense with Martin because he hasn't even finished his shit yet. All right. I can sense myself getting ready to go down a Star Wars tangent, so I'm going to go ahead and end this Thrones Time right now. It's always a pleasure talking to you two. We will be back behind the mics next week to break down S8E2. I don't think we got a title for it yet. We have got some new photos from it. They're up on entertainmentbuddha.com right now. You can check them out. There's 14 photos from the next episode, and they are all from Winterfell, so I think Nick is right, Keith's right. We're probably going to get some King's Landing action, but it just like episode 1, it's probably going to be heavy in the north. All right, my friends, winter is here, and we're ready for it to warm up. Until next time, bye-bye.